All right, woohoo. So, folks, we're live again for another episode of Talk Power BI. Now, this is a really special episode. Perhaps as I was prepping for it, it definitely felt to me like this may be the most important episode I've ever done. Now, I'll give you a little bit of backstory of how I came to this. First of all, though, I want to check with everybody who's online. I see Danny there, Greensboro, Georgia. Hello, Sam. Always good to see you here on the channel, Berlin. So, folks, if you can hear the audio fine, the video fine, just let us know. So, folks, today we're talking about the topic. The chosen topic is women in Power BI, and you already saw a glimpse of some of the special guests that we have for today. And to give you a little bit of a story of how this came about, when we crossed 500 students in our program, we did like just a quick check of just to understand that who is it that we are serving. And as part of that, we looked at a bunch of other things, but, we said, hey, just look at the names and see which one sounds like a, kind of men versus women, just to get a feel of it. And it's not precise for sure, but even by very optimistic estimates, we realized that it was less than 20% were women. Now, at that time, it came as a shock to me because, and I know it feels naive right now, I was expecting a 50-50 split. And again, I feel kind of foolish now, but that's what I was expecting because in my mind, I didn't see any difference. I see Power BI as a great opportunity for both men and women. So that shocked me. And I think that's why we're doing this, because the fact is that numbers and news and media, we've all heard that stuff, right? We've all heard the numbers. One of the most striking is, which Melinda Gates cites in her book, which is, I think, the graduation rate in the tech and computer science degree is 19%, and that has fallen from a high of, I think, like 34 or 37%. But we hear that all the time, and we kind of tune that out, right? We tune that out, and it almost feels like it's somebody else's life. It's happening out there. But this, of course, was now in my backyard. And I felt like I needed to do something. And I will say that even my thinking has evolved as I have thought about this event, as I've thought about, the amazing women who are here today. And I made a statement somewhere in the prep for this event. I said, I'm doing this for my daughter. And I realized kind of how wrong that was, because this is not for my daughter. This is for my son as well. And this is not about women. I think if we create a world which is fair and just, I think it's beneficial for everybody. So that's what I'm here for. And the goal here is for me to just shut up and listen, because we have some amazing women here today. So let me introduce them. And I think Jen, Colleen, Steve, everything sounds good. So that's awesome. We'll keep going. So let me introduce the woman here today. Gosh, first and foremost, Catherine Filar. Now, I remember the first time I heard her story, I definitely choked up. She's got a really powerful, really inspiring story. And I'm going to let her relate that, because I know I'm not going to do any justice to it. But let me just say that she has overcome not one, but several challenges which would have broken anybody else. They seem insurmountable when you hear them, but she has overcome one and all. And she has created a successful career not just once, but twice, reinventing herself when she needed to. Right now, she holds a master's degree in accounting and finance, and that's been a focus. And of course, she's leveraging Power BI to kind of influence and impact that world. And I remember a conversation with her where she talked about, I love how I can use numbers to kind of tell a story. So that's Catherine Filar. Next one up, we have Amy, and so she works at a managed IT provider. She's got a background in IT support for healthcare applications. She's got a degree, BS in healthcare informatics, which I didn't know what that really meant, so she explained it to me. That's basically healthcare plus IT. And so she has spent a big part of her career in that arena, but as it often happens with what I call the data gene people, you're drawn to it. So at some point, she kind of volunteered. She said, yeah, I'll step into this BI stuff and see what I can do. And she self-taught herself kind of SQL and SSRS, But yeah, of course, she found Power BI and she found how much more impactful that is, and I love that part, right? Where you kind of a self-made person. So she has in this new world, she taught herself a lot of that stuff, and she's creating a big impact for her team, for her organization. She does live in Maine with two small kids, and I live in the Northwest, so I can relate. She was talking about how she loves the outdoors and everything Maine has to offer. So that's always good to hear. So these two I have known for a while. Liz Amador was almost a chance encounter, and so I was posting about this event, and she pinged me and she said, "Hey, I run this group, Women in Power BI, the Power BI user group, and maybe we should connect." And I'm like, "Oh, whoa, great!" And of course, we got talking over email, and I felt that yeah, she would be a great add to our panel today. So I'm glad to have her here. She's a senior data analyst at the Western Governors University on a unicorn team. I do want to ask you about that. Okay, I think what you meant by that was with unicorn team with a diverse women leadership and coworkers. That's awesome. That's indeed, it's good to see that. She's also a student working on a third bachelor's degree in data analytics. Great love of learning is certainly there. We saw that same thread in the other two panelists as well. She does have previously her academic background is in linguistics and English literature with a minor in Spanish from University of Utah. Seems like a lifetime of learning. That's awesome. One of my students used this phrase half jokingly and said, "Hey, Avi, when I grow up, I want to be like you." And I got a chuckle, but I love that phrase, and I really feel that we should all kind of retain that spirit. It doesn't matter what your age is. Who do you want to be when you grow up? So Liz certainly kind of embodies that spirit. She speaks at past summit, other world events, and so forth, and she's definitely part of the community in a lot of different ways. And one of the key ones is the Power BI user group that I mentioned, Women in Power BI. All right, folks. So that's our panel, and what I'm going to say is that you have seen other events that we have done before, and what I said about that people gloss over statistics and numbers and news and media. I think sometimes we do that when we hear these so-called experts because they're not, I don't know, I mean, sometimes we don't see them as real people. And, we talk about real Power BI, that's a project that we do. So for this one, you realize that these are somebody you would encounter on your bus ride to work, right? I mean, this would be somebody you would work with, right? So and I would rather hear that story. I would rather hear that, kind of that ground truth, yep, just like somebody just like you and me, and rather hear from them. And I find that most powerful. So I'm really looking forward to it. All right, cool. People are already kind of asking questions. All right, folks. So we're gonna wait for this. We're gonna talk about the topic here today, and then I will stay back for questions. So Amy, Liz, Catherine, a big welcome again. So why don't we start with you just sharing about your Power BI journey, maybe how it has impacted your life so far, or maybe how you see it shaping your future. Why don't we start with Catherine? Catherine, let's. Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Power BI has helped me at work because IT doesn't want to give a lot of time to the accounting department, where a cost, and so IT doesn't help you a lot. They will answer your questions. So I learned a lot about getting the data and linking it together. And Power BI allows me to get information from 4 to 5 systems and put visualizations with the data so I can force the audience to look at what they're doing. That results in the dollars.
That's great. And how has that been kind of received by the other teams within your organization?
it's really shocked them that we can pull the data together. And they've said that been looking for reports like I've been supplying them recently for the last 3 to 4 years. And now they have a dashboard. It tells them
Yeah.
what they're selling to their customers from the different subsidiaries and practices. So it's helping break down the silos that are within a company, which is
Wow.
good for the company.
That's brilliant. Is there a personal aspect to it where it in a way kind of changed you as a person? Is there some aspect of that?
Um, yeah. Now I don't want to seem old, but in 1990 I went under a semi truck. At
Mm-hmm.
that time, I had to overcome a lot of things. One thing, my voice was really, really awful.
Hmm.
And Excel allowed me to do a lot of the numbers work because numbers talk louder than I could. But I still wasn't reaching everybody because we know that some people see visually better than they do just numbers. Give somebody a sheet of numbers, they're going to gloss right over it
Yeah.
because, hey, that doesn't mean anything to a salesman. But if I can show him a diagram showing his trends and where he's falling short, that helps him. So Power BI paired with Excel helped give me a voice when I didn't have one. So
Boy, that's incredible. Thank you so much. We'll certainly come back, and I would love to hear more of your story as well. Amy, why don't you share how about your Power BI journey? How's it been so far? Where do you think things are headed?
It's been very circuitous, which I think it is for a lot of people. I mean, you don't go to college and major in Power BI.
Yeah,
So a lot of people, I feel like they just
not
find it.
yet. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's coming.
yeah.
um, but I did, just kind of find it by accident. I wasn't
Mhm.
one of those people who knew what they wanted to do
Yeah.
after, way back after high school and into college. And so I ended up in healthcare and then in healthcare IT and then into data analytics, which I've been really drawn to, and it's been
Hmm.
really fun.
Yeah.
It's really nice to have that data in front of you, and then you're responsible for making it talk, so to say. It's a lot different than like on the IT side. You're more waiting for trouble issues to come to
Yeah.
you. You're sitting there getting tickets, talking to users. This is
Yeah.
more autonomous. Like I have the data, and it's my job to work with the data, and I like that a lot.
Wow. Does it allow you to be more proactive? So that IT waiting for tickets, that sounds very reactive. But with the data, there's the automated part of it. But is there a proactive part of it which you have explored, or tell me about that?
Proactive in what
As in,
way?
does it make you feel, or does it put the organization kind of more in control of, we're not just reacting, but we're saying, hey, look at the trends. Look, Monday
Yeah,
is always a bad day, or something like that.
yeah, definitely. And
Terrific.
we're selling X dollars worth of this kind of product and not this kind of product or something like that.
Yeah.
So we kind of know where the dollars are going. And as
Mm-hmm.
an IT firm, I can also report on the efforts. Like this project took way too long, or took a short amount of time, but
Yeah.
it required 6 engineers when it should have required just one or something like that. So it kind of brings those things to light.
Very interesting. So I'll ask you the same question. What has been kind of the reaction around you, in your team, organization, to some of this new stuff?
They love Power BI. They think it's great. I mean, it does feel
Okay.
pretty good when you create something and their
Yeah.
jaws drop.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of, wow, you're so smart. I'm like, well,
That's
what can I
awesome.
say?
Yeah. Yes, yes, you should definitely take that compliment, accept it.
Yep, yep.
Oh, that's beautiful. So guys, I'll admit that I'm if you notice it in my voice, I'm a little hesitant when I ask this question because I realize from all the stories I've heard that it's not always the case. So if all the listeners who are out there, if you're saying, "Gosh, no, they don't like Power BI," or they, I have heard so many different reactions. People say, "Oh, just give me a table." And it's okay. It's a journey you have to take them on, and maybe we'll do another episode to focus all on that, right? So to convert them, to convert people. But
I had that question to you a couple of weeks ago. I mean, people, we're just
yeah,
slowly getting
yeah,
people used to seeing things visually. Or even if I do put it in a table in Power BI to
yeah,
show people how quickly you can pivot that data,
yeah.
they like that too.
Well, wow. Yeah, I didn't recall the conversation, but believe me, it's come up a few times with other, kind of insider program and on these conversations as well. And maybe it'll come up in this call later on. All right, so that's great. Thank you for sharing that, Liz. Let's go to you. So why don't you go ahead and share your Power BI journey with us? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm similar to Amy, and I think a lot of women, where I was on a team that I was kind of the Excel guru. I knew if I could put something in a spreadsheet that I could find some interesting thing to help us with whatever business problem. And then slowly we kind of put together our own homegrown analytics team.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of, hiring for a data analyst, it was sort of like we promoted
Yeah.
from within. And I think that's how I came to be on, such a lucky position to be on a team that is mostly women, that has women leadership. So I'm really grateful for that
Yeah.
inroad, that it doesn't always have to be like, you go to school and then you get a job. You can really enter from wherever you are.
I love that. I love that. So I'm going to ask you the same question. How is that? How is the reaction been with the university, with the folks that you've kind of shared, or they've kind of seen Power BI or some of this stuff for the first time? What's been the reaction, acceptance?
Yeah, the same. They love it.
Okay.
We're also dealing with kind of the spreadsheet recovery period, I like to
Mm-hmm.
call it, that everybody just wants to
Detox,
export a
huh?
spreadsheet. Yeah.
Seriously, detox. Yes.
Um, but I think, if you make like one of your report pages a table that they can export, but then show
Yeah.
them like, you could do this on your own if you wanted to, but look at all these cool things that I already can do for you
Oh,
in this tool.
brilliant.
I think that helps them kind of overcome that a little bit.
Yeah. Gosh, that's just brilliant. That's pretty well encapsulates almost the strategy that I kind of recommend as well. So I do want to ask you, so you work at a university, you're working on a third degree. Tell me a bit about this love of learning. Did it spring up on you over time, or were you always like that growing up?
Um, well, to be honest, it's not, it's very easy for me to get a degree at the
Okay,
place that I work at because they give me a discount. So
that's great.
it just sort of made sense that if I wanted to pursue this and it was really accessible to me,
Yeah,
then that's what I should do. And I think that kind of shows that maybe if we had more accessibility into education or opportunities, that women will take it. So.
ooh, wow. Access, yeah, that makes sense. So let's switch over to the next question that I wanted to ask all of you. And Liz, let's just continue with you. So, would you share maybe some of the obstacles or challenges you've faced, you've overcome, or maybe something you're dealing with right now? Would you share a bit about that?
Yeah, I think the biggest one for me is just my own, we call it imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So like anytime that I have an accomplishment, there's always kind of this little voice that says like, "Oh, did you really do that?" Or "Are you smart enough?" Or "Are
Mm-hmm.
you, it could be whatever thing
Yeah.
that you deal with." Um, so that's kind of my biggest challenge. I think actually in preparing for this and writing a little
Mm-hmm.
bio, that was a really good exercise in helping me kind of overcome that. Because when you write,
Indeed.
you look at your own resume and you can see kind of unequivocally like, yeah, I
Yeah.
am qualified. I can do this.
Yeah.
Um, so.
That's brilliant. Thanks for sharing that. And I'm no stranger to imposter syndrome that you talk about. And of course, I didn't know the word for it. I know I felt that way. So my business coach, they talked about that in our business community, and that's the first time I heard it. And just frankly, hearing the name, understanding it, and understanding that hey, I'm not the only one, that was such a big relief for me. And understanding that people at all levels have it. So there were people who I was looking up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there are gods, and they would talk about their imposter syndrome. Um, so it's certainly a thing, but in general, I've felt that it's kind of one of those things like fear, and it's a part of a life. Certainly, as an entrepreneur journey for me, it's always there, but it's you just move past beyond that. So have you done anything specifically, like what's your support network like when you are gripped by that? How do you get out of it? Do you have any strategies you've used or have tried out at least?
Yeah, yeah, I think writing my own bio definitely helped.
Yeah.
One of the other huge things for me has been to try to cultivate, like purposefully and mindfully cultivate who I follow on social media.
Mm-hmm.
So I like reach out and look for like women of color, women who have other intersections of
Mm-hmm.
privilege or not privilege, so that because I think if you just follow who
Yeah.
Twitter or Facebook, recommends to you, it's going to be the people that are already, it's just going to reinforce the bias that's already there. So for me, like
Wow.
if I'm feeling
Yeah.
down one day, I just hop on Twitter and there's, posts from
Yeah.
hundreds of women in data science that are, kicking butt and taking names, and then I feel like I can keep going.
That's great. And I would certainly say so. And frankly, part of that, the imposter syndrome is hard because sometimes when I talk to somebody about it, they would go, "What, Javi? Come on, man! Right? I mean, right? I mean, you've got it all, right?" And of course, when I look at your bio, I might have the same reaction. Like, Liz, what are you talking about? Imposter syndrome. But that of course doesn't often help. So I feel like yeah, that's great. Twitter, that's a great idea. I like the idea of not letting these social media giants decide the bubble you live in, but break out of that. So that's great. Personally, for me, just having friends who wouldn't have that reaction has helped as well. Thanks first of all for sharing that. It's not always easy to talk about that, so thank you for that. Let's switch to Catherine. So Catherine, we heard a little bit in your intro. You talked about how your car had went under a semi truck. You almost lost your voice, and you recovered from that. Um, but I wanna let you speak about what you think have been the biggest obstacles and challenges in your life in your professional career. Maybe some you have overcome, maybe some you're facing right now.
I think part of my challenge in being a woman and out in the work field, I was raised in a family where girls didn't talk. I mean,
Mm.
you were seen and not heard when you were a child. And then I worked in the banking industry in the 90s. I, and there again, women were, you didn't really talk much. I mean,
Hmm.
and I've just always blended into the walls very well. And just within the last year to 2 years, I'm stepping out and saying, hey, look what I've achieved and look what I can still do. And
Yeah.
yes, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
All I have to do is know nothing is impossible. Maybe not practical, but it's not impossible. And
Love that.
I mean, after my accident, I got my bachelor's degree
Hmm.
and my master's degree in accounting. So, and accounting can be kind of boring, but when you pair it with Power BI, the information you can give people so they will be proactive is kind of cool.
Yeah. Hey, that's great. Hey, would you mind sharing the story, because there was one incident which helped you on your path to getting a voice back, and it was a chance encounter. Would you mind sharing that?
Okay. Um, Prior to 2015, my voice was either sounded like I just woke up or like I was drunk because one of my vocal cords was paralyzed in the car accident. In 2015, I went to a seminar that I thought was going to be on making my LinkedIn format better so I could find a job. And it wasn't, but I met a speech therapist and she recommended I go to this voice institute. And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. And I took the phone number from her. And a couple weeks later, I had a bad time at work because I had a phone meeting, and phone meetings were the worst because
Yeah.
by the time I was done, I had no voice at all. And I
Yeah.
just, self esteem was low. So I went to the Voice Institute. They told me I had a piece of Teflon in my throat, and they did outpatient therapy, outpatient surgery about a week later. And then I had a voice. I could breathe and talk at the same time, which was really cool. And I didn't feel like I was hurting anybody's ears. Before, I didn't like to talk in meetings because I was like, oh God, I'm going to kill their ears. And the only time I would leave a voice message for anybody is if I was mad at them and I couldn't get a hold of them. Then I would leave them a voice message. Otherwise, I'd just hang up. But so now I have my voice back
Yeah.
after almost 20 years of not having a good voice.
Yeah.
And I know I can do better than what I'm doing. So hopefully in the future, I will be doing more.
Well, can I ask? So you said that you used the phrase you kind of blending into the wall, and you said something changed just a few years back. What was that change?
Well, the change was when I got my voice
Mm-hmm. Got it.
and I saw that other people were getting credit for ideas that I had brought up that
Mm.
I hadn't taken to the next level myself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a second, I've gotta I've got to stand up for what I've done. And
Yeah.
um, someone wrote an article on Women Achieve, and just to read all the things I had accomplished, I was like, wow, I didn't realize I've done that. So
Yeah.
that was,
That's incredible. And and sometimes I feel like there's this saying that where charity begins at home. Um, and sometimes I feel like helping others starts with helping ourselves. I think if we don't stand up for ourselves, how would we stand up for others? And you certainly kind of done that in a big way.
and
Um,
how will your children know to stand up for themselves if they don't see you stand up for yourself? I didn't want my children to be, just
yeah,
pacifist, not involved in life.
yeah.
So you got to stand up.
That's interesting. My kids have also played a big role in some of the big decisions I've made in my life. But I'll save that story for later. Amy, let's go to you. So you've been this kind of self-taught, pull yourself out by the bootstraps. And so when I was teaching in-person Power BI classes, now I'm mostly online. But I would ask this question because I found it so hilarious. Was I would ask them that, hey, who has a job which is directly related to what they studied in college? And very rarely did hands go up. And I think that's kind of a joke on the education system. The odd thing is, I got a computer science degree, but man, I remember reading stuff like parallel computing. I definitely did not apply parallel computing anywhere in my career. But anyway, so tell me about a little bit more about your story. So we heard about kind of your discovery of Power BI. Awesome, that's pretty cool. But were there any challenges on the way, or do you see any challenges in front of you right now?
I think since my job has kind of morphed into I am now a business analyst, I think my
Hmm.
biggest challenge is that I call myself a business analyst who's not a business analyst. Like I don't
Okay.
know anything about finance. I don't, people ask for sometimes these financial things and I
Yeah.
have to go Google
Yeah.
it. But it's great. I mean, it's fine. I'm learning as I go. I go to
Yeah.
your course in your group, and that's helped me immensely.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of my challenges stem from that, just learning as I go, but every day I learn a little more.
Yeah.
And I face the same challenges a lot of people do as far as messy data. That
Hmm.
probably takes the majority of my time. We're a growing company. We have merged with other companies. And so I spend a lot of time tracking down, like the data's there, but the workflow to put the data in is not the same. So
Hmm.
sometimes things are in different places. This number means one thing to one office, but a different thing to the office like on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And so I spend a lot of time trying to track down, why are you doing it this way and you
Hmm.
doing it this way? Can we
Yeah.
do it the same way so that the data means something?
Yeah.
So that's a huge challenge that I run into.
That's really interesting. So give me a sense of your company. Like how big is it? It definitely sounds like it's spread in different locations, but tell us a little
Yeah,
more.
it's I would call it, man, I don't know how many staff we have, maybe 100 to 120.
Okay.
We have an office in Maine, Portland, Maine,
Hmm.
Massachusetts, Tennessee, and San Diego.
Got it. Different locations. So, can I ask you about this switch? So, for one, I use this phrase where I say your strengths are your weaknesses are your strengths. I think you should wear that as a badge of honor that you don't know finance because you may not realize it, but that is a positive thing because you're gonna bring an absolutely fresh set of eyes. And again, don't underestimate how valuable that can be because, and again, I'm not saying your finance team would be like that, but they can be where they have the spreadsheet syndrome and they need detox. Where I've been with folks where I would show them something Power BI and say, "Give me a table," So yeah, so you bring that fresh perspective, and yeah, you can. Clearly, you can kind of learn on the way go. But what I want to ask you about is this switch from IT and to kind of the business side. And maybe I've been a bit unfair on this, but I have lived on kind of both sides, but I felt that in at least the organization that I was part of, there was like the stark line between IT and business, and they operated differently. They had a very different mindset. IT was about the status quo, and again, maybe I'm generalizing it, but at least that's what I saw. They're like, oh, if anything needs to be changed, there has to be an explanation, reasoning, it has to be approved. And business was, of course, about all about change. It was constantly changing. You couldn't help it. You couldn't stop it. So the dynamics I found were very different. Did you feel a shift? Was it an adjustment that you had to go through? Do you feel like you have just changed without kind of realizing it by stepping over to the other side?
I do feel it's different. The pace of the work is definitely
Mm-hmm.
different. It's
Mm-hmm.
not people screaming because things are broken. I guess it's more people
Yeah.
screaming about their data.
Yeah.
But the pace of the work is different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's like on a personal note, I actually find that it works better for me with kids because I don't have customers waiting for me. I do the work at night or I do the work early in the day, and that allows
Yeah.
me to do what I need to with them when I need to do it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I definitely see a difference between IT and
Mm-hmm.
the kind of data aspect, although I still blend the line because I still manage like our SSRS and a little bit of our SQL,
Yeah.
database. So I
Brilliant.
do blend the line a little bit.
Love it, love it. You're the bridge. You're the bridge. I mean, my
Yeah.
that's my vision. I believe that this line used to be there because there was so much friction between the two teams, and their dynamics were, um, yeah, kind of toxic almost, or some level of it. But I do believe that Power BI can show us a new way because, after all, both teams work for the same business, and their goal is the same: to grow the business. Seems
Yeah,
like.
I've found like when I worked in healthcare IT,
Hmm.
kind of along the same lines, I was the bridge between like doctors and IT, and I could speak
Yeah.
both languages, so to say. Like,
Ah,
you're just seeing this in your, medical chart. This is what it means on the IT side. And so
yeah.
now I feel like it's similar, but just shifted kind of areas where I'm talking to finance, but also explaining how things look on the data side as well and trying to translate.
That's that's great, and I think that I feel is the recipe for success in the new world, where you're the kind of the bridge. You almost have to, or if you can span this kind of tech plus business side of things, where I understand the business and can speak their language, but I also understand the tech. I think that's a super powerful recipe. So yeah, you're definitely onto something. That's great. All right, let's switch up to something else that I want to ask you, and let's start with Liz for this one. So Liz, would you say, have you had any role models going through your career, maybe even growing up, who you've looked up to, or maybe other things or ideas or something that has kind of inspired you, kept you going?
Yeah, that was a hard one for me. I guess I would say probably foremost my mom. She's also a data analyst
Wow,
back
it
in the
runs in the
day.
family.
She's faced a lot more challenges than I have for being a woman, and I
Hmm.
think that sort of inspired me to say, um, kind of like you said with your daughter, I think it sparks something when someone close to you, you can see the injustice of someone close to you.
Hmm.
Um, so I
Yeah.
know that I always, wanted to, I wish that it would have been better for her. Um, and I'm really grateful that she taught me, um, she brought me into work and showed me her spreadsheets and how she was trying to clean her data,
Okay.
how she would go about finding
Yeah.
problems, how she would fix it. So I think she shared a lot of her successes with me.
Hmm.
She became really important for her team because she really knew all the data. She had a really fine-tuned intuition about it.
Yeah.
Um, so that was really inspiring to me.
That's brilliant. Have you shown her any of the new Power BI stuff?
No, I should.
Oh my gosh, I don't know what she's gonna say. I mean, of course, yeah. I mean, what I would expect is she would say something like, "Oh man, if I had this, right?" I mean, she was clearly, incredibly effective and doing great stuff back then. What I call the BP era. Imagine her with this stuff. So that would be pretty cool. All right, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. So, um, Catherine, what would you say? What is there something? Do you have role models, or is there something, a thought maybe, or a belief which kind of keeps you going?
I just, I don't really have one role model.
Mm-hmm.
What I like to do is I see the good in people, and it, it it's my choice to learn how to duplicate that good that I see in them.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't think it's fair to put somebody in a role model situation because everybody's going to have that little bit of downtime or something.
Uh huh.
And so I just find what I like in people. And if I can add that to my life, that's great.
That's that's terrific. It's almost as if, and I've heard other leaders who I look up to talk about that, where they say there's anybody you meet, there's something you can learn from them. So it almost kind of sounds like that. And of course, I've heard you kind of bring it up inside our program as well, where you say, "Hey, I would love to see kind of more of how others are doing, solving Power BI problems and so forth, just so I can see, hey, how they're doing it." That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Amy, what would you say? Do you have you had role models maybe through your career, growing up, or just belief systems which inspire you or keep you going?
I think similar to Liz and Catherine, it's I don't really have one specific role model.
Hmm.
I definitely am inspired by people, particularly monthly when the new Power BI, release comes out. I like watching the videos by Amanda.
Yeah.
Right, Amanda? Yeah.
Yes.
Um, and I think it's nice to see women, high up and
Mm-hmm.
um, relaying that info to us. Personally, I think my husband is inspired. He tells me to do what you love, and so I found data analytics and I love it. So I'm following that path.
That's brilliant. Thank you. That's awesome. So, folks, um, yeah, actually, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. Um, so something that Liz said, and I liked it. It was, gosh, it was. So she talked about her mom and how, and of course, times were different back then. Things must have been harder for women, but she still stood up and stood out. And and last week's Talk Power BI, we were talking about Power BI and how it levels the playing field. And the word democracy had come up. But the context was totally different. The context that we were talking about was one really simple one, but I think it illustrates the point, which is earlier, based on your data source. Oh gosh, I haven't checked the time. Okay. So based on your data source, if you were working with, let's say, a SQL data source versus a CSV data source, your capabilities were entirely different, right? I mean, CSV, you're like, ugh, I don't know what I can do, but SQL, you could obviously, if you learn SQL or if you knew SQL, you could manipulate the heck out of it, right? I mean, you could clean, shape, and transform as much as you could in SQL. Power BI levels that playing field because now it almost doesn't matter what the data source is. Once you bring it in, you have the kitchen of Power BI query editor. That's one example we talked about. The other was where how it levels the playing field between small, medium, and large businesses. There was a point where small and even medium businesses couldn't even think of BI because BI used to be this monstrosity, which was millions of dollars just to get going. I remember our team of Microsoft. It was a small team. It wasn't big. It was just 300 people, but we paid $2 million in maintenance for somebody to maintain our BI system. It was nuts, and I don't even know how many millions that it cost. So it just made things really challenging for small and medium businesses. And now I think it makes it accessible for everybody. So we had that conversation in that context. But what I want to ask you is is it possible that for we're talking about the gender gap, inequality, this, that, equal opportunity, is it possible that Power BI has something unique, or at least the possibility of that? It allows that where it kind of levels the playing field. So I'll let you speak up. Who are yeah. So what do you guys think about that? Is Power BI kind of a unique opportunity when it comes to this? Liz?
Yeah, I guess that's an interesting question. Sometimes I kind of vacillate between, we should listen to people based on their ideas. Maybe we shouldn't ask, like, if people aren't listening to women, maybe we shouldn't ask them to give us the data in order for us to consider their ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think where I've kind of landed is that we should make data-driven decisions.
Yeah.
Because I think when you do, believe people, you're more likely to believe people that you can identify with more. So I think we should,
Mm,
instead of, only asking um, people to give us data when we don't believe them, we should ask for data for every decision. So I think that's important for Power
yeah.
BI to be, because it is so easy to pick up
Yeah.
for people that, aren't already entrenched in like the
Mm-hmm.
data analysis or IT world. I think it's an important tool so that those
Yeah.
um, kind of more business leaders can play with their data and see if their assumptions are correct.
Yeah. So let me double click on that. So what you said, and I believe in that too, but I just want to make sure. So your opinion is that with Power BI, I mean, I hear a lot of statements from people is like, oh, Avi, this looks great, but I'm not fill in the blanks, right? I'm not a techie. I'm not an Excel user. I don't know SQL. All of this stuff. And but you're saying that Power BI is a bit unique. You don't necessarily need to have a strong background in something to pick it up. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, yeah, I think anytime before you would have to ask somebody like to give you data.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and with Power BI, if you have it, you can make a pretty impressive looking
Yes.
report.
Yes.
Um, or you can get into a database without knowing any SQL
Mm-hmm.
with a query editor.
Indeed.
So it's
Yeah.
there's less of an overhead of skills that you have to use
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And hey, I always say it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. So yeah, if you have access to data, go at it, build a dashboard, build something, share it around. That's great. But maybe let me ask the question a different way. So does it feel like Power BI is this nascent new field, like a territory which hasn't been explored, and that implies that there is an opportunity, right? There is an opportunity, almost as if we are going to this new land to build something differently from the rest of the tech culture, from the rest of the society, if you will. In that sense, do you guys feel like Power BI is still this kind of vast, unexplored territory? There's a lot to be done still, and that gives women a unique opportunity, which may not exist in other places. So, Catherine and Amy, what do you
Yeah,
feel about that?
I think people just don't know that it's there. I know I've heard you talk
Yeah.
about, and I actually talk about this at home, is the bubble. Like we all know about
Yeah.
it because we use it and we talk
Yes.
about it.
Uh huh.
But I mean, I had a friend who is a tax attorney and she's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm responsible for this, this, and this." And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
Power BI would be really great for you. Let me show you how to use it. And it's not something that had even crossed her mind. Data analytics is a foreign
Yes.
concept to her. Like, doesn't know what that means. But the actual tool would be something that's really helpful to her.
Yeah. That's that's brilliant. Catherine, do you have any thoughts on this?
No, no. I think it's just anybody
Mm-hmm.
can do Power BI
Yeah.
or anything. It's just they have to want to give it a try.
Yeah.
And the market isn't saturated right now with a lot of people knowing it. So
Yeah.
that's why everybody has the opportunity.
Indeed, yeah, and I think it's quite the opposite. I mean, I think the market is just exploding the way I see it, um, and and yeah. So Amy talked about that, how we live in a bubble, and I've certainly experienced that. I remember when I was at the last Power BI summit, and at one point I felt like, man, my job is done. What am I gonna do? Everybody's doing great, and I mean, I would run into people and it's like, hey, how's your Power BI journey going? And I was like, oh yeah, it's awesome. We're doing great. And I'm like, okay, so who needs my help? But yeah, we sometimes end up in that bubble. But when we step out of that, and one of our members in our program, Cheryl Praverni, she was here presenting on the Real Power BI project. She works in construction business, helps construction businesses in and around New York, and of course helps them with kind of leverage Power BI to get their accounting and finance and everything in order. She had a story which blew me away, which was she would walk into offices and they didn't even have calculators. They had something more primitive. She described them as adding machines, which it's. I think she showed me a picture of like what it looks like, but there is a world outside of that. So what Amy said and Catherine said that it's for everybody. I've heard that before. And one of our other members whom you have heard before on the channel, Pam Baker, she's the one who are inside the program. She presented the last masterclass on what if scenarios in building financial dashboards. So and we couldn't have her here, but I have talked to her about this topic, and she always says the same thing, which I think Catherine or Amy or maybe both of them said, which is it's for everybody. It's a great opportunity for everybody. And I'm like, oh yeah, but what about women? No, it's for everybody. So, as as kind of leading up to the event, I started reading the new book by Melinda Gates, and I'm still in like the first few chapters. But she talks about the fact that, so she's also obviously talking about kind of vaccination and other things, other ways to kind of help women and the world. But what she talks about is that the science is there. What is needed is the delivery mechanism. So I think Amy talked about that, where Power BI is obviously there, but if women or men, right? I mean, doesn't matter who's out there, they don't know about it, it can't help them. It can't help them do their job better. It can't help them transform their career. So I want to ask you guys, do you have any ideas on how we can improve the delivery mechanism? What do you think is needed? So I know there are millions. They're estimated to be close to I don't remember, like 700 million Excel users out there, and we have reached a small fraction of that. What do you think could we do around the delivery mechanism? What do you think is needed there? And any thoughts there? Amy, let's start with you. What do you think about that?
I think, and we all talk about that it's for everybody, but I do think, again, for people outside the bubble, there is this stigma that it's for tech people. And so then, you get people using it, and the ratio is already off because of the divide in tech.
Yeah.
But to change the messaging that that it's for everybody, and we can do that. I know we can do that personally, and to reach out to people who are in various fields, women in education or nursing, you can have huge impacts using Power BI with that kind of data.
I love that, and I think that one is really deep. So, and of course, so the ironic thing is that we have, we crossed 500 students in the program some time back, and a big part of that, probably more than 50%, didn't identify themselves as tech people. And of course, I don't see them that way. Like, if you sometimes see the things they're doing, they are doing tech. But again, it's not just about whether they're tech or not, but do they see themselves as tech? And I'm not sure if women are more susceptible to this than men, but they both are, where they would be doing tech but still not define themselves that way. And that's a good point. If Power BI is kind of positioned that way, if the messaging is like that, it feels like it's for techie people, then they might be self-excluding themselves. Great. I'm certainly going to think about how I kind of message about Power BI when I go there. So, Liz, Catherine, do you guys have any thoughts on this? So think about the delivery mechanism. And frankly, I liked the book because I was constantly drawing parallels between what she was doing and what we were doing. So imagine you got a vaccine in hand. It can cure lives. And we know Power BI is pretty darn incredible, and we need to get it out there. What would you do? What could we do if you have any ideas? Liz?
Well, I think for me, and this is kind of like maybe more generally in tech too, but I think if we had more women doing tutorials and making the tutorials and doing blogs, I mean, we're out there, but I think the people that are currently doing that, share their tweets or like them or look to them because they're doing great work. And then, I mean, if you're not doing that stuff, consider like doing a blog or asking someone who already does that stuff, and if you could be helpful, or because we have good ideas. So I think we maybe could be better about sharing those so that we're more visible. So yeah,
that's great. Boy, that touches on one of the things which I'm truly passionate about, and I think that's again something which applies to all. But so I'm a big believer in building a social presence, and Google is really the new resume. I mean, if they can find you online, kind of before your interview, before your phone screen, whatever, they'll go, oh, okay, this is Avi. It just changes the whole game. So one thing that I talk to the members in my program is that not wait for some spot. So a lot of them have this in a position, how we talked about, so with Amy. So it's odd that we're talking about a few of the things which are kind of mindset. So if you don't define yourself as a tech person, you might be missing out. You might be depriving yourself. You might be thinking unnecessarily so that, oh, I'm not cut out for this. But the same way, a lot of these people are saying, oh, but I'm just starting out and I got to be good enough and I don't want to make a fool of myself or whatever. So if I get there, once I'm an expert, whatever that means, then I'll start blogging. And of course, I say no to that. And I feel that it's incredibly powerful to share your journey as you go along. For one, oddly enough, I think just by kind of writing stuff down and so forth, you learn better. You kind of crystallize those things. And sometimes you are the best teacher for somebody who's just a few steps behind. So it's like, hey, I just solved it like that. So would you kind of agree with that? Would you encourage them to not wait to a point and kind of share their journey as they go along?
Yeah.
No,
Go ahead,
go.
Liz.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, I agree with Amy's, point that we, maybe it is marketed more to tech people, and so that's why there's not as many women in there. But yep, that's spot on.
All right, Amy, what were we gonna say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very helpful to see people's journeys. I do get into that rut where I think I have to be an expert to share my experience or even give advice. But I've learned enough in the year and a half to be able to contribute to other people's journeys too.
Yes. So may I put you guys on the spot? Do you guys right now share your journey as you go along Power BI on any forum? Could be internal, could be external. Inside your company. Oh gosh, we're right in time. Boy, this was a lightning discussion. So let's I'll let you guys answer that really quick.
I don't. Now I feel like I should though.
Okay. Anybody else? Oh my gosh, we have to change that. Okay, so boy, that's great. So my quickest advice is that to get into that mode, the quickest thing you can do is start sharing Power BI news. And of course, you would curate it so it will still be valuable. So there's lots of Power BI news out there. So you would share it from your lens. So like, oh, look, Power BI Desktop came out. So Amy, you were talking about that. And you'll say, oh, a Power BI Desktop update came out. I love this feature in this, or something like that. That's an easy start. And you start kind of sharing, and slowly you want to start sharing kind of your own journey and share the highs and lows, because believe me, that's what makes it powerful. That's what really helps others when they say, oh gosh, I'm pulling my hair out and trying to figure this out. Share that as well. All right, cool. So any other thoughts or comments that you would want to share with us to make this episode complete? Awesome. So folks, we're right on time. I want to respect your time, and it's certainly a big thanks to all of you for taking your time out and sharing. So, and again, we were talking about, I wanted to hear real stories. I certainly got a good share of that. So I'm going to go back and kind of process this myself. I think there was a lot of really inspiring stuff in there, which again, this was not just about women, because the stories that you shared is going to inspire all of us. So thank you so much. And we'll certainly stay in touch.
Thank you, Avi.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Thanks to all. It's great. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Steve.
you.
Thanks, Steve. All right, folks. Boy, that was incredible, and we're gonna try to do the pivot as best as we can. But I'm gonna certainly lots of good comments here. So Layla, yes, I've met her. She's pretty incredible. And I do hope that these voices get louder. Clearly, there is there are a lot of amazing women in this arena already, and I think it'll benefit us all to have more. Leila Girani, MSMVP, great. So much going on. Okay. So Danley, I think, is commenting about how to share on social media, share your journey. So again, folks, I'll repeat what I had said, which is the easiest way to start is just start sharing news in a curated way. Actually, I'll give you my template for the 3 levels of sharing, as I call it. The first level is you just share the news, and yeah, no commentary. That's the first level. And of course, you're gonna filter the news, so you're still adding value. So you can say, hey, Power BI update came out. That's level 1, and that's simple, right? I mean, you can just retweet somebody you like, right? And of course, selectively or something like that. And that's step 1. Step 2 is you share the news or somebody else's things, but with your own commentary. So now you're gonna say, hey, Power BI update came out, and this is the best feature. Or I can't believe they did this. Or I can't believe they didn't introduce that. Or whatever, right? Just add some commentary. That's level 2. So again, start at level 1, which is simple. Pretty much, if you're on Twitter, right, I mean, you retweet some of your selected ones. Level 2 is where you share it with some commentary. Level 3 is you create your own original content. Now, when I say it that way, people totally freak out. Oh my gosh, no, I'm not an expert. I don't know how to write a blog post, all of that. But again, if I say it differently, which is you're sharing a journey, that's your original content. And if you think about that, for one, it is always going to be unique, right? Nobody in the whole wide world has your journey. Is there somebody? Nope, there's nobody, right? So it is going to be quintessentially, I'm proud of that word. So my son jokes with me like, Dad, why do you use these weird words? And what I said to him was, well, I'm an immigrant, so I came from India, and we of course did learn English over there, but when I came over to US, I kind of fell in love with language, and I'm like, oh wow, they have a word for this. So sometimes I might use these weird words. So oh gosh, so yeah, that journey is quintessentially yours. It's so unique. So your perspective it's whatever you're gonna share. There's nobody in the world who's going to do it. So that is valuable in itself, right? And in the other part, it's valuable because you are the best teacher possible for somebody out there, right? And not just one person, but there's a group, right? There's a tribe waiting for you, waiting really for your voice, for your message. Now, if you think about it, right? I mean, people often say, oh, like if you look at Power BI, it's like, it's been there, done that, right? I mean, oh gosh, there are already so many experts, and what would I add? But if you think about the woman that we had on the panel today, now you heard Catherine's story. We all heard it, right? You heard Liz's story, Liz sharing about her journey and everything. You heard Amy's story. Is that not powerful? So there is a tribe out there. There's a Catherine's tribe. There's an Amy's tribe. There's Liz's tribe who are waiting for them. And they have this connection with this, which they obviously haven't discovered because they're not out there yet. But when they start hearing their message, it would be as if Catherine is talking directly to them. Has that ever happened to you? Have you heard somebody who's like, oh my gosh, that's me, right? You hear that, oh my gosh, that's what I was. That's exactly what I'm struggling with, right? So all the Power BI experts out there cannot reach your tribe. And folks, I have this theory, which is, I don't know, sometimes it feels kind of natural, sometimes it feels like wonky, but this idea that helping a million lives and helping a single soul is not fundamentally different. So when we think about giving and doing good in the society, you think about, I don't know, the Nobel Prize winners or something like, oh yeah, they went to Africa and saved millions. Now that is great. But if you impacted one life, isn't that meaningful? Isn't that worth fighting for, right? Or to flip it the other way, has your life been really impacted by one person? And it doesn't have to be, so it was interesting, how Liz talked about her mom, and often the members, like for me, I know it is certainly kind of my family. My dad has been a huge inspiration, my mom, and I look forward to sharing some of my stories later on, certainly not in this episode, but think about, has your life been impacted by somebody? And what would you be if that impact wasn't there? If that person hadn't counseled you? Right, one of my close friends, Kumar, he worked in Microsoft, and he left that to start a kind of a career advisory company. And we'll probably have him on the show someday. I mean, I remember my conversations with him where he helped me understand my career. Right, so if his impact, he wasn't there, where would I be? I know I would be in a different place. And again, right, I mean, I can remember these people, Jim Bachesta, one of the rare managers that I really enjoyed working with. I mean, managers, it's always like, but yeah, I respected him, and he had so much to teach, and not just about work, but about life as well. So think about those people, and if they hadn't touched your life, where would you be? Probably not in the same place. So now think about the one person that's waiting for you out there, and only you can reach them. I can't reach them. They're not going to connect with me. They're not going to connect with any of the other Power BI celebrities. So if you get this mindset, well, it's been there, done that, they're so crowded and so forth. No, you know, get out there, find a tribe, and if you can help one person, isn't that worth it? Okay, cool. So that was my inspiration speech. Get out there, folks. And again, it helps you, it helps others. That's my goal. You know, I want you to be out there because I know that's going to impact others. And you know my goal is to reach a million lives. But I know I'm going to cheat my way to that because I want to create those 1,000 superheroes who then in turn impact 1,000 lives each. 1,000 times 1,000. See how I made it easy for me. I cheated, and that's okay. You know, life is full of hacks, and we should always be open to that whenever we can. So right, so I care about that, but it's also gonna help you. I strongly believe that this world is changing in a big way. If you look at how the economy is headed, is becoming the full-time job is becoming more and more rare. Now, if you're living in a bubble, then you may not realize it, but of course that's at your own risk. That's at your own terrible risk, because when that bubble pops for you, man, you're going to be stranded. So I've had people, there were folks at Microsoft who were there for 20 plus years, and guess what? Layoff, boom, gone. And they were in tears and they were in shock for such a long period because they didn't know anything else, right? That was their whole life. Now, my dad worked for the same company all throughout his life. Now, that has changed already, right? I mean, I don't know, gosh, I've changed like 6 or 7 jobs when I was still working. Of course, now I run my own company, right? So that has changed already. And guess what? Where it's headed? It's going to progress more and more. This trend is not going to stop. And I don't know, I mean, to be fair or unfair, but it helps the corporations, right? It's easier for them to have kind of this freelancing consulting staff rather than full-time employees. Hiring somebody full-time is extremely expensive. Retaining them is expensive, and firing them is expensive too, right? And so they don't want to deal with that. Or there was this other stuff, and yeah. So there's not just about the cost. There's a risk as well. There is the risk. There is a terrible risk of bad hire. And of course, I have been mostly on the employee side, but I've been a few times on the hiring side as well inside a company. And I know that's what you're kind of afraid of a bad hire, because man, that thing is terribly expensive. So there are a lot of reasons where corporations don't like it. And I mean, they would rather not, right? So, and it's going there more and more. If there's a sign, I'm going to share one thing with you, which to me is like, oh gosh, I can't think of an analogy, but think about the turning point. Think about where things are never going to be the same again. It is one of those markers. It is so big, which is this. So generally, companies are looking more kind of for freelancing consulting for a while now already, right? Microsoft, the joke was that any real work gets done by consultants. And it was a joke, it was funny, because it was true. you go to any team and you're like, so I of course was a business analyst, and I would be talking to them about trying to understand the data, understand his systems, because I'm trying to build something for them. And I'll go there and I'll sit there in their offices, and we would have these high level discussions like, yeah, this is what we want and all this stuff. But as soon as it got to the nitty gritty of how the systems really work, guess what? They pointed their finger at the consultants. Like, yep, go talk to Joe, and he knows it. So already the culture was like that. And most recently, what has happened is so the funny thing is that a lot of people who are living in that bubble, I ask them and I say, hey, have you heard about the site called Upwork? And they haven't. They haven't heard about Upwork. And of course, well, if you haven't heard, believe me, you are going to hear about Upwork and other things like that. So Upwork is basically a freelancing marketplace, right? Microsoft has started to work with Upwork in the sense that Microsoft Manager earlier, so imagine hiring is a whole different process, right? You open a rec headcount and all that stuff, and it's a nightmare. I mean, every manager never looks forward to that. So that was that. Bringing in a consultant was much easier. But now, what they're doing is that, hey, you work here, right? So this is Microsoft telling their managers and saying, hey, do you need some help? Just go to Upwork and hire somebody. That's crazy. You see how that changes everything? That changes every single thing. And guess what? If Microsoft is doing that, other companies probably already are or will be doing soon. So this trend is not going to change. Now, you've heard me use this phrase where I say, your strengths are your weaknesses are your strengths. So my friends, here's the thing. Don't let this scare you. Let's make this our strength. But man, we're going to have to, this is a game, all right? This is just a game. And the rules have changed. And that's what happens. So the person who was in tears when she was let go after 20 years working in Microsoft, why was she in tears? Because, the game had changed. She knew that, and she didn't know any of the new rules. She felt at loss. So if we learn the rules of this new game, you know what? We can have it work to our advantage. We can build amazing, mind-blowing careers out of this. And of course, I didn't realize that. I didn't have any visibility to this when I was stuck in that 9 to 5. I'll tell you what my life was with Microsoft, right? So I'll admit, guys, I did great in school. Man, I had a 4.0 GPA at University of Washington, master's in computer science, and earlier I got my degree in computer science from Delhi University, where I topped the university. I was the number 1 ranked student, right? But man, did I struggle in my professional career, and that's a big reason why I'm not a huge believer in educational institutions or anything associated with that. When people ask me about certification, I don't laugh at it, but I don't know. It's nothing. People join my course after they've gotten certification, and I talk to them, right? And they say, "Yeah, we got the certification, but now I want to learn how to really use it." Right? So that so I don't kind of believe in that. So I did great in school and college and everything, but then I struggled in my professional career. In all my life, I think I've been promoted twice, which was anyway. So so at Microsoft, there were titles and stuff, but nobody really cared about the title. There were these levels, these mystical levels. They're still present, by the way. And it was all about that. If you were level 60, all you just wanted to focus on were level 61 and 62 and 63 and so forth. And that was like, that's all I was thinking about. But sometimes you've heard the phrase where you win the battle but lose the war. I think that happens to a lot of us. We get so focused, so trapped in that reality that we lose the war because we lose the bigger perspective. Our life flashes by us and you missed it. You missed life. And it's different things for different people. For me, it's kids, my family, and travel, right? But a lot of people live what I call the deferred life plan. And believe me, I was living that for a long, long time. where you say, oh, when that happens, then I'm going to do this. Just let me work hard to get this next promotion or whatever, and then I'm going to spend more time with family. And I call BS to that, because you know it. We just move the goalpost. You achieve that goal, and then you're happy for a second, and then you go, ooh, what about senior vice president? Ooh, yes. Oh, look at that guy. I mean, he became senior vice president before me, or something like that. We keep moving the goalpost. So I believe in not living the deferred life plan. I believe in living your life freaking now. And that's the promise for us in this new economy. And Amy already hinted towards that. So, of course, some of that is happening even with full-time employees, but with some flexibility. And you can craft your role. You can craft your life. Right? So she talked about how, she can work from home, spend time with kids, lives in beautiful Maine, so explore more outdoors. But that's the promise of this new economy. So fine, let organizations move away from full-time employment. Let them, retirement and pension plans are gone already. So let them take all of that away. We don't care, because we're going to wrest control and power in our own hands. We're going to control our own destiny. We are going to write our own future. But for that, you got to make a few changes. You can't let life happen to you. Most people live like that, right? So sometimes when I would be teaching a class, I would sit down cross-legged on the floor. And I said, hey, what if I taught the class from here? Would I be effective? And of course, the answer is no. But we live our life that way, right? We just sit down cross-legged on the floor and let's just, a reorg, a new manager, they fired me, something like that. Guys, stand up and reach out, right? Stand up for yourself, right? So if we wrest control, we can create our destiny. We can create the life that we want. And a lot of people chase money, and that can be a really risky thing, because my friend, if you chase money, believe me, you're going to get it, right? You're going to get it, right? Nothing can stop you. If you're like, I just want to make $1 million, you're going to make $1 million. No doubt about that, right? It may take some time, depends on your route, depends on what kind of help you have, mentorship, group of people around you. A lot of those factors can vary, but what you should be afraid of is, you know the saying, be careful what you wish for, right? Is that's all you have, right? So don't make it about money. Ask the next question. Maybe the first answer is like, yep, I want to do this because I want to make a whole lot more money. Yes, there's nothing wrong with money. There's nothing wrong with making money. But you got to ask the next question. Why do I want to make money? Right? And again, for me, for everybody, answer is going to be different. For me, it's going, hey, spend more time with my family and travel more. That's it, right? So, and focus on that. Focus on that, because again, if you just focus on the money, you might do that, but then win that battle, but lose the war. Let your life pass by. All right, so bring it all back to what we were talking about, which was a social post. So the world is changing, and the rules are changing, and you can master it, you can nail it, you can ace it if you learn the new rules. And one of the new rules is, man, social presence matters. It can be the biggest difference maker between what comes out of your career, your life, all right? It's an important thing. Social presence matters. Google is already, or soon to be, your new resume. I would say it already is. Every employer, before they hire you, they're going to Google you. And what do you think? What kind of chance do I stand if I do go back, try to get a job, which I don't intend to, but if they Google me, what do you think? And this is what I talk about. So sometimes think about it. It's what I call the "Do I know you" effect, right? So think about it. If you walk into a meeting, right, and maybe the meeting is an interview, or it's something else, right? If you walk into a room and they say, "Oh, hey, you're Avi," if it's an interview, it's yours to lose at that point, right? I mean, because it just makes that big a difference. Oh, yeah, I know you. Oh, yeah, I've read your post. Yeah, you're right about that. But you don't even need to be at that level. They don't need to go, "Oh, you're Avi," right? All you need is this. Do I know you? Like, hey, don't I know you? You look familiar. And you're going to respond to that saying, yep, Yep, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I write articles regularly. Most likely you found me there. I just share, I've been sharing my journey about Power BI and things like that. And whether they it doesn't matter. I mean, whether they remember or not, they would probably go, oh yeah, yeah, right. And again, think about that. It puts you head and shoulders above any other candidate, right? Any other candidate. So that's the new world, and those are the rules. And again, we can turn this to our advantage, my friend. I know corporations are kind of playing their own game, and they think they're gonna, kind of make it convenient for them to hire and fire people, or just have this freelancing floating staff which they can use whenever they want. But that's all right. Let them play their game, because we're gonna play ours, and we're gonna create a life where we create the life that we want, and we create it right now. We wouldn't wait. All right, cool. So clearly, I got pretty energized and excited by talking to all these amazing women, and guys, I've always found inspiration from the people around me, and I feel so lucky to be part of the Learn Power BI community. It's just a coincidence that I created it. I feel like, I'm certainly just a member, maybe first among many or something like that, but I feel incredible that I'm part of this community, because I get exposed to this almost constantly, right? I mean, I'm talking to these people on the welcome calls, on other things that we do, of course, discussions like this, and it's a constant source of inspiration. So hopefully you kind of felt the same. All right, cool. So I'm not sure if I'll check to see if there are any other questions. Gosh, Power BI question, you would fit that in. All right, so yeah. Uh, oh, interesting. Wow, Paul, I love. Wow, there's a good discussion going on. I'll read some of that because I think it's pretty cool. So Paul was asking, question to all: do you do Power BI to show off, achieve what business asked, or step up to a gap that is missing? That is interesting. The way I would put that, and the way my coach kind of described it, is what they want versus what they need. And I think that's almost a constant job for you as a Power BI modeler author, is you got to balance those two. Sometimes what they want is complete BS, right? It's just, oh my gosh, they don't know. They have no idea. And again, they're not the experts. Right? A simple example would be visualization wise. Most of these business people, they're not visualization experts. So they would just, oh, put this here, put this here, put the gauge here, do that here, to put the pie chart here. But they don't know any better. So you're going to have, your job is going to be to balance kind of what they want, which is what they're asking for, maybe verbally, maybe, requirements document or something, versus what you think that they really need. So yeah, it's a bit of a balance, but I love playing that game as well. It's a fun exercise. So yeah, there's some responses there. Yeah, so Paul had a follow up. It's almost a different kind of angle at it, like why the audience here starts doing Power BI. And oh boy, I'm here on the Simon Sinek team. I am a huge fan of Simon Sinek. Power BI to help others rather than be told to learn. That's really interesting. So I've heard all variations of the journey, and I think it doesn't matter how you stumble upon it. So I've heard people where, oh, somebody left, they were doing Power BI, and oh my gosh, now I have to do it, and I'm scared. I can see that it's kind of exciting. I can see the possibilities, but I'm like, oh, I'm going crazy. So they have stepped into in that not so ideal conditions, and so forth. But yeah, I would agree. I agree with what Paul is saying. Generally, it's often people who step up, and I don't know. It's just that's more of what I heard, where they step up, they take, and of course. So sometimes in big organizations, sometimes people say to me, so like a new student would join a program and they would say, oh yeah, Power BI, I'm kind of giving it a shot, but we have a different person they hired for Power BI, or we have a different team doing that. And I say BS to that. I'm saying BS quite a bit on this call. So who cares? Who cares? You don't need to be, kind of tapped on the shoulder with a sword and dubbed the knight or something like, oh, you are the Power BI person. You shall create Power BI reports and dashboards for us. Who cares? Ask for forgiveness, not permission. Never permission. Just go out and do it. Who cares somebody else is doing? Great. They're going to love it, right? So, or not. Who cares? It doesn't matter. So, so I generally advocate kind of stepping up. I'll admit, I pushed to the point where I almost lost my job. So, and this was surprisingly within Microsoft. So within Microsoft, I was trying to push this new wave of Power BI. Back then, it had different names back then, but the same, the same DAX, same query editor, all of that. And I was trying to push that within Microsoft, and guess what? They told me, no, no. We have a BI team. All right, Avi, thank you. Now the BI team will take over. And well, frankly, I was frustrated. I want to quit the job, but I said, hey, why should I quit? I'm just going to do it. So I did not ask for permission. I just did it. And guess what? Remember the team that I mentioned that they were paying $2 million a year to maintain a BI system? They disappeared. Now, of course, the unfairness of it all, my friends, the unfairness of it all. Now, if they were paying $2 million to the other team, they should have at least started paying me $1 million, but they didn't, so, well, that's okay. I had a great time. All right. So Danley says, love up work to generate, answer. Boy, good discussion. Kirill, good to see you, my friend. Yeah, gosh, that is a good discussion. All right, folks. So I say we ended that, but I hope I hope we all kind of think about the discussion that happened today. I know I will be, because there was a lot of goodness in there, and frankly, at this point, I haven't kind of processed it all yet. So Theodore is asking, like, what's the answer? And I don't know the answer. But I know we're on a journey here, and I'm excited about that. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Power on, my friends.